Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to look at one of the favourite trade setups that we like in MTPredictor, and it's what we call our Holy Grail trade setup. The reason we call it Holy Grail is not because it has a high percentage of winners, it's because when we do win, the profit potential is a lot larger than the initial risk. And I want to show you why that is. So we're just having a good example of this unfold on the British pound US dollar on a short 3-minute chart here at the moment. So what is a Holy Grail trade setup? Well, in Elliott wave terms, it's a wave 2 swing, and we all know that from my Elliott wave knowledge that wave 2 is the first correction in a new move just before a wave 3 type of swing, and that's the strongest and longest in a completed 5-wave Elliott wave sequence, therefore it's the best to trade. So what do I mean by that? Well, you can see here we had an automatic TS3 sell setup on this 3-minute chart. This was actually a standard trade setup, standard MTPredictor trade setup, because the STF was red stroke black. So all MTPredictor customers could take this, and as you can see down to our first target it was a potential 5.7R profit, which is a good profit anyway. The position sizing was taken care of, keeping our initial risk small under control. This is where we vary the number of lots, contracts or shares to keep our initial risk small and constant across our different other trades. But what was different about this trade setup? Well, for a Holy Grail trade setup, we consider this to be an important high, this to be the initial move off the important high, this to be the initial correction. In Elliott wave terms, if I just go and put the major Elliott waves on, this is a wave 2. Why is that so important? Well, because after a wave 2 the market then moves off in a wave 3. So if I come down here and do the majors, you can see this is effectively what we're doing. It's a 1 wave 2 to then to go into a strong wave 3 kind of decline. So therefore on this TS3 sell setup, when I place the analysis on, we're actually looking to go to our typical wave 3 WPT target, which is down here, rather than our minimum wave C WPT. So our first target for this trade setup would actually be down here. When the market got to this level, the STF was strong. You can see this by our STF indicator crossing through our grey strength band. Therefore we'd trail with our ATR stop, which is our red dots here, which means our stop on our position now would be sitting at this particular level here. Now you can see the beauty of this trade. At the moment we're locking in a profit of approximately $7,000, all for a risk of approximately $400. In other words, this potential profit, even at this level, we're not stopped out yet, is 18 times the initial risk. And that's why I like this trade so much, is because the profit potentials are much larger than the initial risks. For me, this was why MTPredictor was designed in the first place. So let's go through the criteria we look for. So what we're looking for is an ABC correction, which is identified by our TS3 sell setup, that unfolds as the first correction, which is a wave 2, on the initial swing, which is a wave 1, from an important high. As you can see, we've got all the parts there. Before I carry on, I want to talk about this history triangle, which is our black triangle here. This means we would have had another sell setup here that actually got taken in by 1 tick, or 1 pip as we're looking at 4x here, and then would have been stopped out for a -1R loss. In other words, this would have been a losing trade. So you'd have lost 1 risk unit, but as we've already seen, the profit potential on the second one here at plus 18R is more than making up for this first loss. So this is what's so good about this trade setup, is when the losses come through, and of course we all know as professional traders that losses always will and can come through, the losses are kept small and the profit potentials are large. So far so good, but the one thing that I haven't talked about yet is how do we know that this is a 1 and a 2? Well, it all comes off for how important this initial high is. And this is where we have the advantage of MTPredictor, because what we do now is go out to the higher time frame chart and see whether there's resistance at this high on the higher time frame. If we go out to the 15-minute chart here, here's a prior pivot. We place a DP off here, and you can see that this swing high here is actually beyond that, so there wasn't resistance on the 15-minute chart. Let's go out to an hourly chart, do the same thing, and you can see we're way beyond any pivot high on the hourly chart. Let's go out a little bit further to the 4-hourly chart, and this is where things get interesting because here you can see we had another pivot back here on the 2nd of January. We right mouse click, place the decision point on. I'll just drag that across, and here is where it gets interesting because this high, which is what we started this whole sequence off, was actually at 4-hourly resistance. In other words, it was at a higher time for resistance area. The beauty of these DPs is these are placed on the chart in advance before the market even gets there. So before the British pound even got up to this level, you'd have known that there was a 4-hourly resistance zone there. Let's see what this looks like when we come back to our 3-minute chart. Well, there you go. You can see there's our 4-hourly resistance held on the chart there. So this is what makes identifying the, or this is the points that we use for identifying the Holy Grail trade setup. First and foremost, we must have a swing coming off a higher time frame support or resistance zone. In this case, it was the 4-hourly DP. That defines that as our important high. We then look for the initial decline, the initial correction. In Elliott wave terms, that would be a wave 2. After a wave 2, you tend to get a strong wave 3 type of swing. That's what the Holy Grail trade setup is all about, because it trades off the end of a wave 2 into the wave 3. If I place the analysis on like I did earlier in the chart, you can see that we're not looking for our first profit target. We're actually going to go down to our typical wave 3 WPT because this is the most likely area where wave 3 swings are going to unfold. Hence, because we're coming in right at the end of the wave 2 or right at the start of the wave 3, the initial risk is kept small, and because the wave 3 is the strongest and or longest wave in a completed 5-wave sequence, the profit potential is large. So even at the first target there, or the first Holy Grail target, the profit potential is approximately 14 times greater than the initial risk. As I've already outlined, in this particular example, the STF was strong, as we see down here. Therefore, you'll be trading with our ATR stop. Now, this trade hasn't been stopped out yet, but I just wanted to do the video now so you can see how this is unfolding and perhaps follow it for yourselves. So even at the moment, we're still locking in potentially 18 times the initial risk. In other words, turning a profit of approximately, or sorry, an initial risk of approximately $400 into a potential profit at the stop where we are at the moment of approximately $7,000. So this is a great trade and a great example of the MTPredictor Holy Grail trade setup as shown on a 4x chart, which is the British pound US dollar.